Okay, welcome to the Pacific Rim Conference Tech and Access Training Session. This is for people who have volunteered to help us with the help desk. We're just going to sort of give sort of a brief overview so people know what their expectations are and what they can expect. I'm going to give a question and answer session at the end. If you feel you want to ask a question, you want to forget about it, go ahead and put it in the chat. So the basic objectives for today are just sort of learn some basic protocol for answering questions should someone come in and ask us, for some assistance on one of their presentations or accessing the accessing one of the Zoom meetings or possibly the website, though I would kind of doubt it. Just go over the best way, what things you should find, what kind of information. Next, we're going to go over how to sort of isolate what their problem is. A lot of times people are very flustered. They're somewhat, unhappy about something not working. A lot of times it's, if you just sort of let them sort of talk about it, you can either A, help them out or realize that you need to pass on to somebody else. Well, we have another guest. Hello, Renu. Can you see the captioning? You see the captioning? Okay. So the last thing we're going to do is like who to contact. So if you're at the help desk, I don't expect you to answer all the questions. We're basically just going to be there at the Zoom room. People come in, we're just going to go through a series of questions, gather some information, just sort of give them some basic feedback. So you are not here to fix all the problems, because in giving live presentations, there's usually quite a few. So I'm just going to go over sort of the basic things that you'll need to know. Okay, so I've developed a short protocol for answering questions. If somebody comes to the room, you may be asked, they may be put in a waiting room, so you may have to give them access. There's no passcodes required to enter the Zoom help room, so just be aware that they're not going to need any sort of special access, but they will be put in a waiting room and you will have to let them in. If they do come in, the first thing I would recommend is to find out what their name is, because just because I can see a Zoom picture, we're not so sure the name usually isn't complete, may not say enough about the person to really be able for us to contact them back. Next thing I'd want to do is get their contact information, whether it's an email or whether it's could be a text, just something. The best place to do that is to ask them to record it in the chat box feature within Zoom. So you can open it up, they will have access to it as soon as they get in there, and they can type in the information, their name, contact information. Next question I would ask them is, what's the relationship to the conference? Are they just a presenter? Are they a participant? Are they a Zoom room host, something else? Because all these people will have sort of unique problems that we may need to send off to a certain person who has the expertise to fix it. So try to find out what the relationship is, because if they start saying, well, I'm having problems with my computer, and they are, participant, that's a lot different than if they're a presenter. So just want to make sure that we know who they are. Once again, make sure you put that in the chat box. The last thing I would ask is, what is your problem? So we're going to go over that. I'm going to go over a few of these things about how to identify the problem and, what's the best way to address it. Okay, so how to isolate the problem. These are probably the different types of challenges they may be having. So one of them is just going to be access to the Zoom room session. So that's usually more of an external. I'm going to go into detail on all four of these things. That's usually more of an external thing. They're having problems getting into the URL. They may not have the right password, et cetera, et cetera. The next kind of problem that we have had experience with are internet connection problems. The presentation is slowing down. Videos are freezing up. People's pictures are freezing up. They're getting interim on and off things throughout the presentation. So we'll give you a few questions you can ask them. The third one is session viewing problems. Now, what we're going to be covering on that is how people are seeing the screen. Now, just to give you an example, I'm recording this, but I have no idea how you're seeing it. So people who are coming in are not necessarily going to see what you're seeing. So just be aware of that. We also are going to have several setups that have been already sort of pre-put into our presentation Zoom accounts. So I just want you to be aware that the end user, the person coming in, does have a lot of control over how their session will look. So it won't always necessarily be the back end. A lot of times it's the person, it has to do with their Zoom account. Is it updated? That's going to be one thing you want to ask them. Do they have they gotten the latest update on their Zoom account? The last thing, this is more of an accessibility issue. I'm going to be going over captioning and American Sign Language interpreter. There are a few things that we probably ought to be aware of because there are people having those kind of issues. We're going to want to be able to get them off to an expert or somebody who can really give them some more in-depth help than we can. Okay, so access to the Zoom room session. The first thing I would recommend if someone says, hey, I'm having problems getting into the session room that I'm trying to get to, I believe you all got onto the volunteer check. There's a whole schedule on there. If you don't, when you come in there, we'll give it to you. This is the URL. I will probably be sending this out probably Friday night or Thursday. It has the entire presentation schedule. It has the name of the presentation, who the presenter is, and what the URL is for that specific room. So if someone's saying, and the time and day, so they may be going, well, nobody's there. That could be one thing. Or they're saying, well, I can't get in. They won't let me in. Or, it's just not working. So those are kind of different questions. Now, the reason people may be having some challenges with that, because we're obviously dealing in various time zones. All the ones that we have on our schedule there are in Hawaii Standard Time. So that's the way the schedule was set up. It just made it easier for us. I'm not so sure it makes it easier for everybody else, but that's the way it's going to be. So you can go on there. It's the first thing I would check. Are they trying to go into the correct session at the correct time? And do they have the correct URL for entering that specific room? So each session will have a unique Zoom URL to get into. You might want to check to make sure that they're trying to access it with the correct URL. They may have gotten one left over. They may have something in their cache in their computer. And so a lot of times if they're trying to type it in, I've found that if people are trying to type in a URL, it's easy to make a mistake. So you want to make sure that they have the correct one and tell them to copy and paste it in, into their access, and it'll probably have a better chance. Now, if they're still having problems, then what you do is you're going to contact myself and I will start talking with them and trying to figure out what the problem is. So like I said, I don't expect you to be spending 20 minutes trying to fix somebody's problems. A lot of times they either are not very used to Zoom. I can go to a lot of Zoom meetings and still not be very proficient in how all the controls work. The other problem we have is that some people have pro accounts, some people have regular accounts, some people have outdated accounts. Some people are using Chromebooks. They also have a lot of limitations on the amount of controls that could be used. So these are not things I expect anybody, working in a volunteer into our help desk to know about. So if you start getting, feel like this is, I don't have time for it, or I don't really know what to do next, you're just going to contact me and I'll give you all the contact information at the end. And I will, in a couple of minutes, come back into the room, or else I'll already be there I do have to assist somebody with the presentation at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, but that's only for half an hour. So, but go ahead and contact me if something comes up. So those are probably the biggest challenge going to be with, getting into the Zoom room. They don't have the right time and they don't have the correct address. Once again, it's all on that schedule that you'll have available to you. Okay, internet connection problems. This is a very common problem with any sort of Zoom meeting. I've seen very few Zoom meetings where people are having problems with their Wi-Fi, their bandwidth. I mean, I've had a lot of problems with that too. And so as more people are using these type of applications, the bandwidth is really taken on a load. So a lot of times, this is something to think about. If they're coming back to you and they're saying, I'm having internet connection problems, you can't really troubleshoot that. That's kind of on their end. Just so you know, the servers that we're using to host these uh, Zoom accounts for the presentations, it's pretty reliable. It's the information technology systems here at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. They have a pretty good reputation. They're probably actually the biggest IPS provider in the whole state. I know them well. I've worked with them for 20 years. They're pretty good. So it's probably not going to be them. They also provided us with all the accounts. And so they're going to be watching to make sure that we have enough bandwidth. I'm not even sure they have to, but they're always right there trying to fix things. So this is what I would suggest you tell them. Number one, if they're having problems, they need to go find another internet connection. Find another way, another Wi-Fi. But it's probably not going. They're probably not going to be able to do all this during the current session they may be at. So this type of information that I'm suggesting is probably for future sessions and ones that they're going to be taking either in the next hour or later in the day or whatever. So if they can start working on these issues, they'll probably have a more enjoyable experience. The second thing to ask them to do is to reboot their computer. A lot of times it doesn't always fix Wi-Fi problems, but it usually fix some kind of problem. It could just be something in their operating system that's gotten stuck. Once again, you are not here to troubleshoot their computers. So that's why I'm just giving you these basic steps on what to tell them. And last, if they're in a session and they're having problems, the presenter's freezing up or it's slowing way down, to tell them that it may not just be them, is to ask the other people, either probably through the chat box, are you having problems with this? Are you not seeing the video? Are you not seeing the presenter? Is the presenter frozen? A more common problem is the presenter doesn't turn on their microphone. So tell them they shouldn't hesitate to ask if anyone else is having the same problem. Okay, the session viewing problems. That's when the screen that they're on, so they're in the session. This has nothing to do with internet connections or being at the wrong place at the wrong time. This is if the screen doesn't look like what they expect it to. That can be for a lot of reasons. I was in one today and we were giving a demonstration and one guy says, I see something very different. And what we found out was he didn't have a pro account, that's okay. He had a regular Zoom account, but he hadn't updated it like in, I don't know, 6 months. Just so you know, this is one of the things I don't particularly like about Zoom, but they put out not a new version, but they regularly put out updates on Monday mornings. So the only thing I would recommend is that before Friday night or whatever, make sure that yours is up to date. It's pretty simple check to do. I would really it's worth the time and effort to get the updates. So here's a couple. These are real simple things you can just suggest to them. One is to change up the setup in Zoom, particularly on the view. There's a gallery view, there's a speaker view that's typically up in the right-hand corner. So that's going to switch things from you see everybody or you just see a few people. Just so you know, we're having ASL interpreters at every single session, and there's going to be 2 of them. They're going to be spotlighted or pinned, so they're going to be on the screen no matter what. So people may not be used to that. There also may be some captioning in another window. We're not sure if that's going to happen, but so they may not be used to seeing that. So just tell them to make sure they're switched between the 2 different views. The next thing to try out is to change the full screen view. Sometimes people have their screen is crunched and they're not really thinking about it. It's not taking up all space on the monitor. A lot of times this has caused people problems, particularly with like reading captions or trying to read a slide. I'm not going to say this is a fix, but it's just a good suggestion for them to try. The last thing, because we are setting these things up for having the speaker and the presenters be on the screen, there's a split screen adjustment. It should be coming up if the viewer has an updated version, and they can slide it back and forth. And so you have 2 parts of the screen they're viewing. If you slide it one way, the other side becomes bigger. If you slide it the other way, it becomes smaller. So they can play around with that. That's not something the presenter or the host people can fix. That's something that the person coming in is going to have to play around with and figure out what's best for them. Okay, so the last thing here is about the captioning and the ASL interpreter. So just so you know, there will be an ASL interpreter. That's American Sign Language. There should be 2 windows spotted on the screen. Now, why are there 2? You may get asked that. The reason there are 2 is because the session lasts for more than half an hour, they switch back and forth. So they may not be used to seeing that. One of the interpreters, will probably be turning off their video, but there'll always be 2 there, and they will be switching back and forth. So that's probably more of an accessibility issue, but people are probably may ask. They just either for whatever reason, but just so you know that that's the way it's set up, and that's being done on purpose. The captioner, that's text on a screen reflecting spoken words. Tell them to turn on if they want to see captioning, they have to turn it on. They can turn on the CC and hit live transcription. These are the kind of features I don't believe work in a Chromebook. So you may want to ask them, what kind of computer you have, or whether, what version of Zoom have you recently updated, because it's a fairly recent addition to Zoom. We also are going to be having an additional capture, a live captioner come in. When the live captioner comes in, the presenter, or more likely the host, will be announcing that there's a link that people can link onto. It'll be put in the chat box. People who are attending the session will be able to click on it, and the captioning will open up in a separate window. So some of them may be used to this kind of captioning. It's not for everybody, but it is a live captioner as opposed to the other ones being automated. If they come into the meeting late, even if it's 30 seconds late, and the host or the presenter has announced that the link is in the chat box, they're not going to see it. So one of the features in Zoom is you only see the chat beginning when you entered into the room. So if they don't see it, tell them they need to ask for the link for the captioning. It should be there. We can't guarantee every room is going to have a live captioner, but they all will have some sort of captioning available. Okay, so these are the other type of inquiries you might be getting. Once again, where is the session? You may get asked that. They may be asking not for one they're trying to get in, but maybe one, it's happening, next hour or whatever. You do have that schedule available for you to access. You just feel free to give them the information. It's a pretty typical question we get asked. Also, they may ask, where is the poster session? That's going to be in the the mighty networks, but what I would suggest to them is the poster sessions are not live, and they will be up for 2 months. So they don't need to get to the poster session to actually meet the presenter. The presenter will have the poster. They'll have a written transcript of what their poster's about. I'll probably have some sort of contact information, but within the poster session itself, people can leave a message. There's a threaded discussion board, so they can leave a message, please can you contact me, or just a basic message, and the exhibitors or the poster session participants, or bring me presenters, excuse me, they'll be coming periodically and checking out and possibly answering them back. Just remember to tell the people that the poster sessions and all the recorded sessions, including the live ones, will be available to them for until May 1st. So they will have access to it. Somebody's getting really, unhappy about not being able to attend one of the live sessions, just let them know that it's going to be available as a recording, and it will be up for 2 months. Okay, the last thing that you may get asked is people saying, well, I'm being locked out of a session. That may be because they're not using the right password. The Saturday's sessions have a different password. They all have the same password. We'll have a different password than the Monday and Tuesday. The Monday and Tuesday sessions will all have the same password, and it will be put on that volunteer check that has the menu on it. So they may be using, yesterday's, they may be using an old password for something. So just be aware of that. The other thing is they may be trying to access an account too early, that if they haven't opened it up, it's going to say you can't have access to it. So you just want to always make sure they're trying to access the correct URL and with the given session. Okay, so I've spoken long enough. If you have any questions, feel free to put them up. I'm gonna my last slide here will be all the contact information. So I'm going to answer the questions that I have in the chat. Okay, the red button that's moving is showing that, yes, it's showing that the talk is being recorded. So I'm actually doing the recording, and I will be downloading it. And we've recorded every session. We plan to use it in future trainings. It may not be this one, so we're going to be going through how many am I done? Like 4. This is my 3rd one today. So if you do not want to have your image on the thing, or do not, let me know, and I'll make sure that that's not the one that gets posted. So you can email me, directly. The link for captioning, that's going to be it's a external provider, and so they're going to be coming on, and some of them will provide a link, and some of them are just going to put it on. We don't know exactly how each individual captioner is going to do that, so they may provide the link. They may not provide the link. We're not exactly sure how they do it. Typically, they just come and start doing the live captioning. You can turn it on or off, so they're going to have a lot of options. And we also will be having the live transcription option available that the person entering into the room has to turn on and off, but it will be enabled for people to use. Okay, are there any other questions? Okay, so we do not expect you to be experts on all of this. I'll be quite honest with you. I'm not an expert on all of this. We don't expect you to be talking to somebody for half an hour trying to troubleshoot there. If it takes you more than 5-10 minutes and they insist on you keep helping them, tell them, I'm going to need to bring in somebody. I'm the first person that you're going to contact if I'm not already in the room. This year, we're combining the help desk. So there'll probably be other people in there who are going to be either technology, accessibility, or just general questions on the help. The help desk does not require a password to get in, but as I was saying earlier, you may have to grant somebody they may be put into a waiting room, so you may have to let them invite them in. So the best way to contact me is either going to be through my email, which I think you probably already have, or else you can text me. So feel free, just say, please come to the Zoom help room. You don't have to give me any explanations or anything else. If for some reason I'm not there, like in a couple of minutes, the next level of people to contact was going to be Naomi. Try me first, and then if I don't, like I said, I don't get in there in a couple of minutes, contact Naomi and see if she can assist the person. So that's why it's critical that you get their name, the contact information in that chat, and also what's their relationship to the conference, and just some sort of general idea of what the problem is. Because a lot of times, they really do need high level help. It could be the interpreter companies having some problems with one of their interpreters, and we're not going through every single live presentation and taking a look at it. So it's maybe a realistic thing. They may have not shown up. They may be having problems with the captioning hasn't been turned on. We're trying to cover these things with all the sessions. There are going to be at least 4 people from the Center on Disability Studies or somebody affiliated with the conference who will be at each session. So we're trying to cover ourselves as much as possible, but things still go wrong. And so, they may have a legitimate thing. So I will try to get back to the help room as fast as I can, mainly just figure out who to talk to next. But like I said, I don't expect you to be sitting there for 10, 20 minutes trying to answer the questions. Now, somebody asked me, we're going to be allowed to take a break. Yeah, you can take a break. Hopefully there's going to be always somebody there. There may not be. I mean, if you have to leave, you have to leave. I'm not going to sit there and say, well, no, we're going to, get dinged for it or anything. So hopefully it'll be a pretty easy experience. I'm assuming it will be, but this is the first time we've done this. We have a lot of people who are not really used to giving, presentations on through Zoom. The main thing to remember is most of the sessions, except for the keynote speaker and some of the Saturday sessions, they're real short, but most of them are like 45 minutes. So, we've just recommended they do like a half an hour presentation and 15 minutes of question and answer. They don't have to stick to that. That's not required. If somebody's coming in and it's already like 10 minutes into the session and they're having all these kind of problems, there's a good chance they aren't going to be able to get back in it, or they're going to miss quite a bit. So I just wanted to make that clear. Okay, are there any other questions? If something I'm sorry, go ahead, Cece. Do you have a question?
Yeah. May I know if the sessions will be recorded? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, all the sessions will be recorded.
Yes.
Then
go ahead.
In case if anyone doesn't want to be recorded or being put their image in the Zoom, anything I can tell him?
To tell them they're going to be recorded. If there's some big objection, let us know. We're not here to expose anybody, or if we have to take it down, we'll take it down. We're not going to be hard about it, but let them know it is going to be recorded. They may or may not show up in the recording depending on how the people have set it up. So just be aware of that. Okay, any other questions? Like I said, if something comes up between now and when you're supposed to be there, just let me know. Email me with any questions. I should be able to get back to you at least within 12 hours, but hopefully quicker. Okay, any other? I want to really thank you for volunteering. We really do appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing both of you there. Okay, I'm going to end the recording.